I guarantee every one of the students who've been on the March of Remembrance and Hope with Pinchas and Sally will bear witness for the rest of their lives to these eloquent survivors. So I'd like to ask the students of March of Remembrance and Hope to come up and just share with us a few moments from your experience on the trip. So big hand to the March of Remembrance and Hope students.
Hi everyone. My name is Sam.
My name is Shanshan.
And I'm Karyn.
We were on the March for Remembrance and Hope in 2014. Just to reflect on the trip, I think the last time I shared the stage with Ellie was at the Treblinka concentration camp. I think when we gave a musical performance. And another thing that happened at the Treblinka concentration camp for me was when we got there, they kind of set the group loose. It was just we were kind of free to wander around amongst the stones and unmarked graves, just to be there in our own moments, in our own heads. And I felt very lost at that time. And as I was walking around, I saw kind of off to the side in the woods, like I don't know, a couple of trees off the path. There were elders Kat Krieger and Sean Kinsella, his helper. And they were kind of sitting down on the ground. And I walked up to them, and they were setting up to do a smudging ceremony. And we had been doing smudging ceremonies every morning of the trip. Well, at least they did every morning, and we could join them. And so I had done a few of them myself, and so I sat down with them, and they invited me to smudge with them. And so we were doing that. We did a smudging ceremony. We used, I think, all 4 of their medicines. And I finished the experience, and not only did I feel very refreshed and a little bit more healed than I had been a few minutes prior, but I also just couldn't believe what I was doing. And I thought I was, based on my background, I kind of predicted that I would be interacting with Holocaust history in a very different way than what ended up happening. And I think that's the beauty of the MRH trip for me, was you just get these kind of organic moments that come about when you have people from all these different walks of life and different faiths. And you come out of it just thinking about the Holocaust, not just as for me, a Jewish tragedy, but as a human tragedy that you can, with which you can, it's an experience you can relate to many other people with. So just watching that video and hearing what you said about not growing up knowing much about Aboriginal histories resonated with me. And I think MRH is hopefully going to be something I come back to as something that changed my life in that direction as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Shanshan. I come from Hamilton today, but I grew up in China. And just as many of you said that Penthouse reminds you of your grandfather, Penthouse reminds me of my grandfather too. And my name's Shanshan. My grandpa's a fisherman, and Shanshan actually means coral reefs. And it has the meaning of that they grow together, they house diversity, and they're weathered by the waves in the ocean. And it's welcoming of all sorts of different biodiversity underwater. And earlier this year, I was introduced on a deeper level to the 7 grandfather teachings when I was working with a group of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students up at a leadership center. We're working on physical education and wellness. And I was introduced to the 7 grandfather teachings. And as I was watching these films, when I closed my eyes, I could picture us in Auschwitz-Birkenau in that room. And if I close my eyes listening to Penthouse talk about his sister, I can picture us standing on the grounds of Madonic in a circle and listening to Penthouse talk about his stories. I think one of the coolest things about March of Remembrance and Hope is that what I learned and what I almost beat myself up doing is that I was struggling making connections to the stories that Penthouse was telling us, the Holocaust stories and the grounds that we walked. I think I looked to my friend Sam, and Sam has grandparents and his ancestors walked the same pathways that we did. And what's standing beside me, Karyn, she's an educator, she's a teacher, and she works with kids, and she can relate to a lot of the things that was happening. I'm a science student, and I remember on day 5 coming home from Auschwitz-Birkenau that night, really struggling to find words connecting my thoughts and my feelings. And then day 7, we went to Madonic, and we were standing in the memorial at the outside of the crematorium in the memorial, and there's a law of thermodynamics that says energy cannot be created nor destroyed. I had Sam on my left and Shahan to my right, and Shahan's not here with us today. And I remember seeing this candle that we had lit, and Penhas is singing with us standing in front of the memorial. And there's this candle flickering in front of me, and it's really drafty, really windy spot. And some candles are going out, but the one in front of me is really holding on. And then when there was a stop in the breeze, it would come right back up. And in that moment, I kind of lost something. But I think I gained a whole lot more in the process. I think that was my way of connecting with the stories. And I think each of us have to find our own ways to connect to the stories. And I thank Penhas, I thank the Seven grandfather teachings for have guided my way towards there. And thank you, Penhas, for within you show me the 7 different grandfather teachings and the stories that you tell, and the stories that you don't tell, and the places that you walk us through, and the places that you don't walk us through. I think every little bit of it, we try to take as much of it as possible to then be able to take it elsewhere and be able to relate it in a way, and in our own way. And that's how we're going to then share these stories. Not the way that Penhas has shared it, not the way Ellie eloquently tells the stories, but in the way that we're able to connect with those stories. And it's going to be different for each of us. And I could be completely wrong. I'm about to share a South African proverb, and I think there are much more people with more expertise in here that should be sharing this. There's a word called Ubuntu, and it's an African proverb. My understanding is that it describes community, and it describes the African philosophy of community, and that it takes a village to raise a child. And if there is a literal translation, it's I am because we are. And that is just so powerful to me, because I'm standing here today, and I wouldn't be here today if Karyn didn't say I'm flying in from Winnipeg, and I wouldn't be standing here today if a guiding light, Madeline Levy, some of you might know her, she's from Hamilton, if she didn't tap me on my shoulder when I was 15 years old and said, hey, you should come to this Asper's Foundation Human Rights and Holocaust program, I wouldn't be here today. So first of all, thank you. As I stand here, I'm very aware that I look different from you guys. So I thank you for welcoming me into this space. And I thank you for giving me the microphone. Sorry, Karyn. Sorry, Sam. But I really, really, truly appreciate this opportunity. And for anyone, whatever arm's length, however away you were removed or a part of this program, I appreciate you. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. It's been a truly, really special journey. And I think I'm just starting, and at times life gets busy, and we forget about it, but it's moments like these that bring us back to what I think I learned is that this is not a story of the Jewish people. It's not the story of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit of Canada. It's a story of mankind, and it's a story of it's a story that not only separates us, but also connects us in ways that it's hard to put into words. So all I can say is Ubuntu, I am because we are. Thank you, Miigwech. I appreciate you. Thank you.
I think I'm one of the... Oh, I'm Karyn, in case you forgot. I think I'm more of the typical MRH alumni. I was the student who was always interested in Holocaust education. Even when I was really young, I had an interest in the Holocaust. So I was that kid in the library who would pore over books at lunch hour just out of pure interest. And I thought I had known a lot from my self-education, but there is something to be said for experiential learning, and that's what MRH was for me. It was this opportunity to go into the place, and that place-based learning is what really brings about everything full circle. You're there with people who you don't know at all, but you somehow become instant friends with within 10 days. Actually 10 hours, it happens pretty quickly. And for me, it was such a powerful experience because I found when we walked through these spaces, it was probably the most devastating thing I'd ever seen in my whole life. And listening to the stories, it was crushing to have to hear someone else's experience and how powerful that was. And you have to acknowledge the total depravity of humanity in those moments, but it was also beautiful. It was hopeful, because despite the fact that we all come from different backgrounds, different races, different genders, sexual orientations, political views, socioeconomic backgrounds, we all were able to gather together in these spaces where humanity was once ignored, and we were able to collectively find hope. And in doing so, it gave me a desire to take what I had learned and move forward, and to make sure that we lived up to that saying of never again. Never again will we allow this to happen in Canada. Never again will we allow this to happen elsewhere in the world. And I think that was the most powerful thing for me in this whole experience, was seeing that it's not our differences that separate us. It's our collective desire to change the world that unites us. And that's something that I can never get anywhere else. And so I'm incredibly thankful to all of the founders, Ellie for all of the fundraising, Pink House for sharing your amazing stories with us, and everyone who joined me on the trip. They completely changed my life, and I know that without that trip I would not be the person I am today. So thank you so much.
I just wanted to say that was not at all staged.
No.